Greetings, fellow travelers, vagrants, explorers, wildlanders, and welcome to the Retro Wildlands. My name is Nomad, and this is my gaming podcast where I like to share my thoughts and experiences with a video game that I've discovered or rediscovered while roaming the gaming wildlands. Thank you for joining us around the campfire, my friends. Go ahead and pull up a seat by the fire. I just added another entry into the expedition log, and it's only right that we check it out by the fire's warmth. It's about a game I somehow managed to avoid for nearly a decade, and yeah, I'm still not totally sure how that happened. Today's entry is on Super Mario Odyssey, a game I assumed I already understood before I even played it. Not only was I very wrong about that, this game ended up serving as a reminder that sometimes the adventures you think you've outgrown are the ones that hit you the hardest when you finally give them a chance. Gaming Wildlands Expedition Entry 2. Game: Super Mario Odyssey. System: Nintendo Switch. Originally completed July 5th, 2025. Super Mario Odyssey is a game that I waited entirely too long to play for the first time. And when I say too long, I mean embarrassingly long. This wasn't a situation where the game just slipped through the cracks for a year or two and fell on the backlog. No, this was me finally playing one of Nintendo's most celebrated modern releases nearly 8 years after it launched, and that delay mostly came down to one thing. It took me forever to actually get my hands on a Nintendo Switch. I didn't get my first Switch until roughly 7 or so years after the console launched, which in gaming years is basically a lifetime. By the time I finally had one of these in my hands, Super Mario Odyssey had already been dissected, praised, ranked, speedrun, memed, and lovingly declared a modern classic by just about everyone. Even then, after I did get the Switch, Odyssey still sat on my shelf for a while before I finally committed to playing it. And looking back, it wasn't because I didn't want to, it was more like I had a good idea what I was getting myself into already. On paper, Super Mario Odyssey sounded great. A globe-trotting Mario adventure, tons of imaginative worlds, secrets hidden around every corner, collectibles galore, and refined 3D platforming. But if you've played games for decades, especially if you played a lot of Mario games, there's a little voice in your head that says, okay, but haven't I done this already? As I've gotten older, I found myself gravitating towards games that feel new to me. Not necessarily new mechanically, but new emotionally and structurally. Games that surprise me in unexpected ways. And whenever I looked at Super Mario Odyssey on my shelf, I was worried that, as polished as it clearly was, it would feel like more of the same. So yeah, my past self was in fact an idiot. Because once I finally slotted Super Mario Odyssey into my Switch and took that first step into its opening moments, I realized something very quickly. Even when you think you know what a Mario game is going to be, Nintendo still finds ways to make it feel magical. For a game that's been discussed to death over the last several years, there isn't much I can say that hasn't already been said. But sometimes the value comes from why it works so well, especially when experienced later in life. Odyssey absolutely deserves to stand alongside Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, and Super Mario 64 as one of the greatest mainline entries in the series. What makes that even more interesting in my case is that I missed a lot of the big 3D Mario milestones growing up. I didn't play Mario 64, I didn't play Sunshine, I didn't even play Galaxy when they were new. So while lifelong fans may see Odyssey as an evolution of ideas they've been engaging with for decades now, for me, it felt like stepping into a fully realized 3D Mario world for the very first time. And man, I have got to say, what a world, or rather, worlds, to step into. At its core, Super Mario Odyssey is about exploration. While there is a central narrative with Bowser kidnapping Peach yet again, this time with wedding bells in mind, the story mostly exists to give you a reason to bounce from one kingdom to the next. And really, that's all it needs to be. The game begins setting this story thread up right away, where Mario is quickly beaten down by Bowser and thrown off of his flying ship. As Mario works to chase down Bowser and rescue Peach, he'll travel through tons of different worlds. Your main objective is to power up the Odyssey, a sort of airship shaped like a top hat that Mario and the player uses to travel from kingdom to kingdom. The Odyssey is fueled by power moons, which are hidden all over the place. Some of these moons can be in plain sight, other moons are more hidden. Each kingdom you visit feels like a self-contained playground, inviting you to poke, prod, and experiment. There is technically a suggested path that you should follow, but the game rarely forces you to engage with it in a rigid way. Instead, Odyssey encourages curiosity and exploration. If something looks interesting, it probably is interesting or serves some other purpose. Odds are there's a power moon hidden nearby, or at the very least, there's something delightful just waiting to be discovered. And speaking of the kingdoms themselves, they are just fantastic. The Sand Kingdom, for instance, feels expansive and mysterious with its shifting terrain and buried secrets. The Cloud Kingdom is brief, but it's very striking. It's almost dreamlike. New Donk City is an absolute standout. It's a bold, stylistic departure that feels like Nintendo is just flexing their creative muscles. And then we have the Moon Kingdom. Sparse and eerie, it provides a tonal shift that keeps the adventure from ever feeling stale. Actually, I can say that about pretty much every kingdom. Each location isn't just visually distinct, it plays differently. The developers constantly remix mechanics, introduce new movement challenges, and present puzzles that force you to think differently depending on where you are. That variety right there keeps the game fresh, even dozens of hours in. And then there are the secrets, which Odyssey is overflowing with. Some power moons are practically handed to you, rewarding surface-level exploration and curiosity rather than skill. Others are cleverly hidden, requiring you to read the environment, listen to subtle audio cues, or notice visual oddities that just don't quite line up. And then there are the moons that really make you stop and think, pushing you to experiment with the game's mechanics in ways that the game never explicitly teaches you about. It's the kind of design that respects the player's intelligence while still remaining incredibly welcoming. While I never had a drive to really collect every single power moon in the game, I had a fun time pushing myself just hard enough to feel challenged, and I never felt like I was missing out by not finding everything. While playing this game, I ate very good, and I was very, very satisfied. If exploration is the soul of Super Mario Odyssey, then Cappy is absolutely its beating heart. Early in the game, Mario loses his iconic red hat and teams up with Cappy, a sentient, ghostly top hat. Mechanically speaking, Cappy completely redefines how Mario moves through the game world. At a basic level, you can throw Cappy at enemies, objects, and switches. You can also jump off of Cappy midair to extend your reach. You can use him to recover from missed jumps or chain together advanced movement techniques if you really want to push the system. But for me, Cappy's most defining ability, the one that truly sets Odyssey apart, is his capture ability. By throwing Cappy into certain enemies or objects, Mario can possess them, gaining access to entirely new abilities. Suddenly, you're not just jumping around and stomping on things, you're swimming as a Cheep Cheep, stretching high up in the air as an Uproot, rolling at high speeds as a Goomba Tower, or rampaging through the environment as a full-blown Tyrannosaurus Rex. And yes, controlling a T-Rex never gets old and is fun every single time you get to do it. What makes this system so brilliant is how naturally it ties into puzzle solving and traversal. Every capture feels like it has a purpose. You're constantly asking yourself, okay, now what can I do? It's almost like Metroid in the sense that now you have a cool new ability, you think back to where you've been, and if an obstacle you came across might be passable now that you have a skill that you didn't have before. More often than not, your new enemy ability leads to a clever solution or a hidden reward. It also injects a sense of discovery into the game that never really fades. Every time I encountered a new enemy, I genuinely felt excitement at the possibility of capturing it just to see how it worked. That curiosity is one of Odyssey's greatest strengths. If I had one minor gripe to level at Mario Odyssey, it's that traditional Mario power-ups kinda take a back seat here. Outside of Cappy's abilities, there aren't really any classic transformations or powers to play with. But honestly, that's such a small complaint when the capture mechanic is this creative and well implemented. One thing I truly appreciated about Super Mario Odyssey, especially at this point in my life, is how approachable it is. Rolling the credits doesn't require extreme platforming skills or encyclopedic knowledge of Mario physics. Is that even a word? Never mind. The main campaign is breezy, joyful, and forgiving, allowing players of all skill levels to see the story through to its conclusion. This was especially apparent watching my wife play the game. She is not what you would call an experienced gamer, and platformers in particular can be frustrating for her. But Odyssey's generous checkpoints, intuitive controls, and forgiving design allowed her to genuinely enjoy the experience. She could explore, experiment, and succeed without feeling punished for mistakes. And I think that's incredibly important. Nintendo made a conscious decision here to welcome new players without alienating longtime ones. The real challenge, the truly demanding platforming, is reserved for the post-game content. And depending on the type of player you are, that might be a brilliant choice, or it might be a frustrating one. For me though, it worked perfectly. Once I did roll the credits on this game, I was satisfied. Everything beyond that felt like optional dessert. I dabbled in the post-game challenges, appreciated their difficulty, and then I bowed out when I felt content. While there are over 900 power moons in the game, the roughly 200 or so that I found naturally felt like the perfect stopping point. And I love that the game lets you decide where that line is. At the end of the day, my biggest fear going into Super Mario Odyssey was that it wouldn't offer me anything new, that it would simply be a beautifully polished version of something I had already experienced countless times. What I learned instead is that execution matters. There is nothing wrong with familiarity, especially when it's handled with this level of care, creativity, and confidence. Super Mario Odyssey doesn't reinvent Mario so much as it refines him. It takes decades of design knowledge and distills it into an experience that feels effortlessly joyful. The controls are immaculate. Mario feels responsive in a way that very few games can achieve. The level design constantly nudges you towards experimentation. The soundtrack adapts beautifully to each kingdom, sometimes swelling into unforgettable moments, like the now iconic New Donk City Festival, and it all reminds you why Nintendo remains unmatched at creating pure, unfiltered joy. This is a game that wants you to smile, and I am glad to say that I did, constantly. I may feel like the last person on Earth to have finally played Super Mario Odyssey, but if you're somehow in the same boat, if you've been putting it off like I have and waiting for the quote-unquote right time, or assuming that you already know what this game has to offer, take this as your sign. It is time for you to embark on your own Super Mario Odyssey. And that brings us to the end of our second entry in the Wildlands Expedition Log, my friends. This has been the Retro Wildlands Expedition Log number 2, Super Mario Odyssey. Thank you very much for tuning into the show today. Before we put out the campfire and part ways, don't forget to give the Retro Wildlands a follow on social media and make sure you subscribe to the show as well. Our website, theretrowildlands.com, is also the place you want to be for the latest content as well as our growing catalog of podcast episodes and blog entries. You can sign up for a free account on our website, which will give you the ability to leave comments on pretty much everything, and it's a great way to interact with me, the show, and the community outside the dreaded social media algorithm. The Retro Wildlands is also part of the SuperPod Network, home of some other awesome video game podcasts and other gaming content, and you can check all of that out and more by heading over to superpodnetwork.com. Thank you all again for hanging out with me today. Be sure to come back in a couple weeks and we'll turn the page in our expedition log and check out another modern game I discovered on this epic gaming journey of mine. While I have multiple log entries already planned out for this year, our next entry is a game that I completed recently and also recently posted a written review of it on our website. It is still very much on my mind, and at the risk of content overload, I want to talk about it one more time, at length, before I finally close the book on it. It was one of my favorite games of 2025, and it's a game that keeps making me smile, laugh, and somehow pull my heartstrings all at the same time. That game is called Dispatch. Join us again as I dive into that game on the podcast, and be sure to check out our next full-length episode where I'll be celebrating Valentine's Day a little early by counting down my top 10 favorite female characters in video games. Until then, my friends, my name is Nomad, and you can find me roaming the Retro Wildlands.
Here we go, off the rails. Don't you know it's time to raise our sails? It's freedom like you never knew. Don't need bags or a pass. Say the word, I'll be there in a flash. You could say my hat is off to you. Oh, we can zoom all the way to the moon from this great wide wacky world. Jump with me, grab coins with me, oh yeah. It's time to jump up in the air. Jump up, don't be scared. Jump up and your cares will soar away. And if the dark clouds don't just whirl,